What's going on, guys? It's Rest, and in today's video I want to go over a brand new melee build for Amara. This is the ultimate melee build. With DLC 4 we have gotten a new piece of gear that has made every single item that you use a dedicated melee item, and this build is better than it ever was. This build is going to be all around pure melee, face puncher melee, Nova melee, grenade melee, everything. Whatever you want to do, every single aspect of melee damage in this game is in this build. It can cover everything in the game from mobbing to bossing, however you want it done. So if that interests you, as always, my builds are located in my Discord channel. If you'd like to download them, the link to the Discord will be in the description. If you're down to build, enjoy the video, find it helpful in any way, consider subscribing and dropping a like. It's free and it's what allows me to keep making videos like this for you guys. But with all that being said, let's get right into this build. Alright, so as you see here, we have a lot of melee focused items. The main item we're going to be running is a Linoge, or honestly you can run any item you want, but you need 120% melee damage and a 300% damage weapon anoint. These two combined makes melee absolutely insane. You can one-shot almost any enemy, especially once you have Overkill and Groundbreaker procced, and it is absolutely disgusting. This weapon is for your up close and melee build. If you only want to melee, this is what you want to be using, and it does the job very, very well. Now for another weapon, we're going to be running the face puncher with the same exact anoint. This is going to be for your aerial targets or bosses. This absolutely will destroy bosses paired with some of our gear that I'm about to go over. And if you need to shoot something in the air, or if you need to get a res or something, the face puncher helps out with that a lot. Now for the gear, I'm actually going to be using this new class mod called the Muse. This is a DLC 4 class mod, which is one of Amara's best new class mods, especially for a melee build. So it says whenever Amara damages an enemy with a melee attack, she projects his melee damage outwards of her attuned elemental towards another enemy. This has a short cooldown. The cooldown is around like 3 to 4 seconds, but this is essentially going to let you have a small overkill orb, if you know what overkill is from the skill tree, and you're going to be able to just do an insane amount of damage. This thing, the damage it puts out is absolutely insane. Now the key factor right there is it says whenever you do melee damage. Now melee damage is considered melee from the face puncher, so you can shoot this orb out basically. And the shield we're going to be running is the Stinger, and while axe skill start, you can activate any effect that triggers on shield breaker fill. And if you don't know what the Stinger does, essentially when the Stinger shield breaks, it releases this melee Nova. It's a Nova tied to your melee damage, which also procs the Muse class mod, but this does an insane amount of damage. So now not only will you run in, you can use this to start your damage off to get an insane amount of Nova damage, which actually also got buffed in the recent hotfix. This is also going to proc your Muse, which is going to spawn essentially a small overkill orb to seek out and do damage, which then is going to proc stuff like Overkill and Groundbreaker, and that is going to make your melee weapons do an insane amount of damage. So you can melee with the Linoge and one-shot most enemies, which in return is going to make more orbs that we were just talking about, and it's just a constant repeat. Like, the synergy of this is absolutely insane. And like I said, if you're ever going up against a boss, you can use something like the face puncher. Now the grenade, I'm running the fish slap. This is a very good melee centric grenade. The amount of damage this thing can do is insane. Honestly, I would recommend using the fish slap on some bosses too, because it just bounces and constantly is doing damage over and over again, and it is absolutely disgusting. If you don't know, the fish slap does basically use your melee damage as the damage, so you can only imagine the amount of damage you're going to get out with this. Now for a general mobbing artifact, I run the knife drain static charge. This is basically going to let you get max health every time you melee an enemy, which is really good for survivability. Plus, when you slide, you put up a static charge that is basically going to make all your melees turn into a brainstormer, which actually does scale with your melee damage. And not only that, all of the stuff I just listed procs static charge, so the ad clear of this build is absolutely going to be insane. As you see, we're getting more max health, axial cooldown rate, and melee damage, which is all really good, because axial cooldown rate is going to let you proc Stinger more often. Melee damage is obviously more damage for everything, and max health is going to help your survivability with the knife drain. Now for other artifacts, I have a white elephant right here, a berserker white elephant to be exact. This is really good for bossing. Basically, when you melee an enemy, you get more fire rate, so it's going to let you apply sticky bombs really fast with the face puncher. And the sticky bombs just are going to do an insane amount of damage. We have more melee damage, more axial cooldown rate, and more area of effect damage on this white elephant alone right here. So this is simply for bossing. I don't use it for anything else. Like I said, for mobbing, I always run the knife drain static charge. Now another fun little thing, since this is going to be the ultimate melee Amara, I'm running a level 1 Brawler Ward if you actually want to use this with a face slam anoint where you get more melee damage after you face slam. You can change this out for the Stinger if you want to. And this is actually really good for bossing as well, because I'm also going to be running It's Piss. If you don't know, the level 1 obviously makes it have very little shields. And this one right here where you get 300% more melee damage when your shield is depleted. So you can throw the It's Piss on the ground, basically take your shield off. You get 300% more damage when you're going up against any boss. Plus you have White Elephants proccing, doing insane boss damage. And you can absolutely melt almost any boss in the game with the face puncher. Like I said, not only is this build very good for bossing, it's also insanely well for mobbing, and it is very, very fun. Now getting to the skills, I'm focused mainly on health and survivability. I'm putting 5 points of Root to Rise to get more max health, 40% more max health, and I'm not going to take any health generation perks because the Knife Drain alone heals you with 1 melee, not even the face puncher melee, just a normal melee will heal you to max. I'm putting 5 points in Helping Hands to get 40% damage reduction, which is really good every time you use our action skill, which should be pretty much all the time. 5 points in Arm Steel so we get more splash damage and splash damage reduction. Really, really good for this build. It's going to increase our damage even more. I'm actually putting 3 points in Mindfulness, so when we take damage, we get more movement speed and shield regeneration delay. The only thing I'm using this for is regeneration delay. This is going to help your Stinger come back really quick, so when it goes down again, it can proc a Nova. So not only is your action skill proc Novas, the shield alone and its actual effect is also going to proc the Novas a lot. 1 point in Fire Center, so we get more melee damage and more melee range. Really, really good for a melee build. 5 points in One with Nature, so we get 25% more max health and 40% elemental damage reduction. This is really good, especially if you're running something like Incendiary over here or Soul Fire, because you're going to get 40% Incendiary damage reduction, which is really nice. It's really good if you pair it with this Brawler Ward where you get 13% Incendiary resistance, so since you're pretty much going to have your health bar the entire time, it synergizes really well and it lets you survive a lot. Now I'm actually putting 1 point in Guardian Angel, so if we go down we can get right back up. And I'm putting 1 point in Blitz, so we get 100% more melee damage, and when we melee an enemy we actually lunge towards them, which does have a short cooldown, but if you kill an enemy the cooldown is immediately reset and you can just dash across the map meleeing people. Now if you're going to run a face slam build, like if you're going to run the Brawler Ward, I highly recommend running Fracture, since Fracture actually does proc your melee anoints. It doesn't have to be the normal face slam, this will proc everything, so I highly recommend running that. Now for Mystical Assault, I'm putting 3 points in Fast Hands and 1 point Dual Armor, 1 point Violent Tapestry just to get to the bottom. None of these skills really matter at all, but 5 points of Restless, so we get 25% more corner rate, so we can get our axe skill back as fast as possible. 3 points of Transcend, so we get more critical hit damage every time we use our axe skill, which is really good for the Face Puncher and the White Elephant because it's going to do an insane amount of crit damage, and that's what allows you to just destroy bosses. 1 point in Ascendant, so we can buff all our axe skill augments. So whatever augment we're using, primarily is going to be Soul Sap, but we can get a lot of health back with that. Now I'm putting 3 points in Lay Bare, which is getting buffed to 5 with our class mod, where we get 41.7% damage increase when our axe skill hits an enemy. So this is really good for bossing. So you can throw, whatever out at a boss, and now you do a lot more damage to him. 3 points of Wrath, so we get 20% more damage, 20% more after we pop an action skill. This actually does work with the Face Puncher, so that's why I'm putting 3 points in that. 3 points of Arrest, so we get 12% more fire rate. This is really good for just bossing in general. 12% more fire rate is nice for the Face Puncher, on top of what the Berserker is already doing. 1 point Remnant, so we can spawn another Overkill Orb. So now not only we have an Overkill Orb from Remnant, we essentially have one from Muse right here, and you absolutely destroy everything with it. It's kind of ridiculous. 1 point in Avatar, so we can use Axel twice for cooldown, which is really, really good. So that means we can proc the Stinger a lot more often, and we can kill things a lot better. Now 5 points in Infusion, so we can convert whatever damage you're doing to our elemental damage, this is nice for bossing. So if you're going, doing the takedown, you can put Corrosive Fallen, so you're good against Wotan, or if you're doing Grave Void, you can put Incendiary on, so it's good against Grave Void. 1 point Illuminate Fist, which is getting buffed to 2 with our class mod, which is giving you 150% more melee damage, and our melee damage is going to be tied to whatever axe skill element it is. So, again, whatever you're going against, your Face Puncher is now doing that elemental damage. Your normal melee is now doing that elemental damage, and it's really, really good. Now, since we have 5 points now from level 65 increase, we're putting 5 points of Tippins, so basically every single bit of damage you're doing is now getting buffed even more to do an extra amount of damage, and it is absolutely insane. Now, I think I want to say really quick, some of this gear, especially like the Muse right here, is not even the best it can be. I do have 63% more melee damage, which is good, but you can definitely get better distribution points on the skills, and you can have things like actual equivalent rate, actual skill damage, splash damage, anything like that you can normally get on the class mod. I can get on here, but unfortunately I do not have a good one quite yet. But you can see the potential what this build already does without even having the best gear. So that is it for the ultimate melee Amara. I think at this point in the game, this is pretty much the final melee build you will see for Amara. I'm sure there's still some other little things that can, happen, some funny interactions that we haven't figured out yet. But essentially now, since we have all 4 gear slots being helped by something that helps you melee wise, plus both your weapons as a ranged and a close range weapon for melee, I don't know how it could get any better than this. So like I said, not only do you have normal melee damage, you have ranged melee damage, you have AoE melee damage with the shield, and between all that damage you have a ton of survivability with the knife drain and all the points that you're putting in brawl. But that's going to do it for this build. Definitely expect to see some more coming out soon. I wanted to go on and get this new melee Amara build out because of the new class mod, and as you can see, the potential it has is absolutely insane. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Prada Bay, run away, don't go. I'm in hell, might as well just go. Losing track.